The sound of their laughter cut deeper than the crash ever did. There they were, my husband and his mother, carelessly tossing my belongings into garbage bags while cracking jokes about my defective parts. I stood frozen in the doorway of what was supposed to be our forever home, watching them destroy my life with smiles on their faces. My name is Ariel, and 6 months ago, I nearly died in a car accident. Helen was behind the wheel, driving like a maniac despite my pleas to slow down. The last thing I remember before everything went black was her dismissive scoff. "Don't be so dramatic, dear." I woke up in the hospital to learn I'd never be able to have children. Donald held my hand that first day, promising we'd get through it together. Looking back, I should have noticed how his mother smirked in the corner of my hospital room. "Oh, look what I found!" Helen's shrill voice snapped me back to the present. She dangled my wedding album between 2 fingers like it was contaminated. "Should we burn it, Donald?" "Just toss it," Donald replied, not even looking up from his phone. "Tiffany and I will make better memories." The name hit me like another collision. "Tiffany?" Donald finally met my eyes, his face devoid of any warmth. "Yes, Tiffany, someone who can actually give me the family I deserve." He walked over, handing me a manila envelope. "The divorce papers are inside. Sign them quickly. Tiffany's lease is up next month, and she'll need somewhere to live." "You're moving her into our house?" My voice cracked. "The house I designed?" Helen laughed again, that horrible tinkling sound that always reminded me of breaking glass. "Oh, honey, it was never really your house. You were just keeping it warm for someone more suitable." I watched them continue their cruel inventory of my life, separating what they deemed worthy of keeping from what they'd discard. 10 years of marriage reduced to garbage bags and casual cruelty. "The movers will be here in an hour," Donald announced, checking his watch. "You should probably wait outside. Wouldn't want to make things awkward." "Awkward?" I repeated, anger finally breaking through my shock. "You're kicking me out of my own home and worried about things being awkward?" Helen stepped forward, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood floors I'd personally selected. "Now, Ariel, let's not make a scene. You must have known this was coming. After the accident—" She paused, her lips curling into a practiced look of sympathy that never reached her eyes. "Well, what use is an interior designer who can't design a nursery?" The words were meant to break me, and maybe a few months ago they would have. But something inside me had hardened during those lonely nights in the hospital, during those physical therapy sessions neither of them bothered to attend. I turned and walked to the study, my study, ignoring their protests. In the bottom drawer of my desk, behind old tax returns and warranty cards, was a document my father had insisted I keep safe. "Just in case," he'd said, hugging me tight after the wedding. Because sometimes love isn't enough. My fingers closed around the folder, just as Donald appeared in the doorway. "What are you doing? The study is off limits." I pulled out the prenuptial agreement, the one his mother had actually insisted upon, believing it would protect her precious son from my gold-digging ways. But my father, ever protective, had added his own clause, one that Helen had been too arrogant to read carefully. For the first time since walking into this nightmare, I smiled. "You know what's funny, Donald? You and your mother have spent the last hour laughing at me, but I don't think you're going to find this very amusing at all. What are you talking about?" Helen appeared behind him, face flushed with irritation. I carefully tucked the document into my purse. "You'll find out soon enough, but for now—" I walked past them, head held high. "I think I will wait outside. I have a very important call to make to my lawyer." As I stepped onto our front porch, my front porch, I could hear Helen's voice rising in confusion. "Donald, what clause is she talking about?" I pulled out my phone and dialed Jerome's number, my father's oldest friend, and the lawyer who drafted that prenup. My hands weren't shaking anymore. For the first time since the accident, I felt steady, strong, and absolutely certain about what came next. Sometimes karma needs a little help, and I was about to become its favorite assistant. Jerome's office hadn't changed in the decades since my father first brought me here. The same leather chairs, the same wall of law books, the same comforting smell of coffee and old paper. But today, everything felt different. Today, I wasn't here as my father's daughter. I was here as a woman, ready for war. "Show me the clause again," Jerome said, adjusting his reading glasses. I handed him the prenup, watching as he flipped to the relevant page. His eyes widened slightly. "Your father was always brilliant, but this is masterful. What exactly does it mean?" I leaned forward, heart pounding. "It means, my dear, that when Helen caused that accident, she triggered this clause." He tapped the paper. "Any negligent action by the husband's immediate family resulting in physical harm to the wife automatically transfers all joint marital assets to the wife's sole possession." I blinked. "The house? Yours? The cars? All of them? The business accounts?" Jerome smiled, the kind of smile that reminded me of my father when he was about to win at chess. "Every penny that was jointly held or acquired during the marriage. And here's where it gets interesting." He pulled out another stack of papers. "Your interior design business? The startup capital came from Donald's family trust." "Helen insisted on that," I said. "She wanted to control everything." Well, her control just backfired spectacularly, because that investment creates a direct financial link between your business and their family assets. It strengthens our case significantly. A knock at the door interrupted us. A tall man in a well-worn leather jacket entered, carrying a thick folder. Curtis," Jerome said. "Perfect timing. Ariel, this is Curtis Holmes, the best private investigator I know." Curtis nodded, dropping the folder on Jerome's desk. "You're going to want to see this. I did some digging into the new girlfriend, Tiffany, like you asked." I opened the folder, and my stomach lurched. There were photos of Donald and Tiffany together, dated weeks before my accident. Text message records, hotel receipts. He was cheating before the crash? My voice sounded distant to my own ears. "Gets better," Curtis said, pulling out more documents. "Or worse, depending on how you look at it. Your mother-in-law's been paying Tiffany's rent for the past 3 months." Jerome whistled low. "They planned this. The accident might not have been intentional, but they definitely used it as an excuse to push you out." My hands were shaking again, but not from fear this time. "What do we do now?" "Now?" Jerome's eyes gleamed. "Now we serve them eviction papers. The house is legally yours, Ariel. They have no right to be there, let alone move another woman in." "But they'll fight it," I said. Curtis chuckled. "Let them try. I've got witness statements from the accident. 3 people saw Helen running that red light. She was on her phone, arguing with someone. The police report backs it all up. And I've already filed the property transfer papers," Jerome added. "They're being processed as we speak. Donald and Helen are about to learn a very expensive lesson about karma." My phone buzzed, a social media notification. Donald had just posted a picture of himself and Tiffany in my living room, champagne glasses raised. The caption read, "New Beginnings." "When can we serve the papers?" I asked, my voice steady. Jerome checked his watch. "The moving truck you requested is already on standby. We can have everything in motion within the hour." "Do it," I said, standing up. "And Jerome, make sure there are plenty of copies of those photos of Donald and Tiffany. I want Helen to see exactly when her precious son started cheating." As Jerome made the calls, I stared out his office window at the city below. Somewhere out there, Donald and Helen were probably still laughing, thinking they'd won, thinking they'd successfully disposed of me like last season's furniture. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from my best friend Delilah. "How'd it go with Jerome?" I typed back, "The house is mine. All of it is mine. Serving papers today." Her response was immediate. "Want me there for moral support when it all goes down?" I smiled, remembering all the times Delilah had stood by me while Helen tried to undermine my confidence, while Donald slowly pulled away after the accident. "Yes," I replied. Come watch karma do its thing. Jerome's voice pulled me back. Ariel? The movers are in position. The servers are ready with the papers. It's time. I took a deep breath, picked up my purse, and headed for the door. Behind me, I heard Curtis say quietly to Jerome, Man, they really shouldn't have messed with her. No, I thought. They really shouldn't have. I met Donald at a charity gala 10 years ago. He was charming, successful, and looked at me like I was the only person in the room. Helen was there too, of course. She was always there. I remember her eyes scanning me from head to toe, lips pursed in disapproval at my off-the-rack dress. You're an interior designer? She'd asked, voice dripping with condescension. How quaint. Now, sitting in my car outside what was still legally my house, I scrolled through Donald's social media feed. There they were, Donald, Helen, and Tiffany, posing in my carefully curated living room, the room where I'd spent months selecting every piece, matching every color. Tiffany was wearing my favorite armchair like a throne. Look at this, I said to Delilah, who sat beside me in the passenger seat. Helen's already tagged Tiffany in the country club's private group, welcoming our newest member to the family. Delilah leaned over, her face darkening. That's the same group they kicked you out of last week, right? Yep. Helen told everyone I'd had a mental breakdown after the accident. I clicked through more photos. Oh, this is rich. They're planning a housewarming party. In my house. My phone rang. It was Curtis. You're going to want to hear this, he said without preamble. I found Tiffany's old Instagram account, the one she deactivated right after your accident. I recovered the archived posts. And? She and Donald were at the same resort in Cabo last March. Different photos, same location, same dates. 3 months before your accident. My stomach churned. That was our anniversary weekend. Donald said he had to work. There's more, Curtis continued. I've got credit card statements showing dinner reservations, hotel bookings, all going back almost a year. And get this. Helen's been making regular deposits into Tiffany's account since January. Delilah grabbed my phone. Are you saying Helen was funding their affair? Looks that way, Curtis replied. She was basically paying Tiffany to pursue Donald. I watched another car pull into my driveway, more guests arriving for their impromptu celebration. Through the window, I could see Helen directing caterers, pointing imperiously at my dining room. The servers are in position, Curtis said. Jerome's got the police on standby in case things get ugly. You sure you want to do this now? I thought about all the dinner parties where Helen had subtly criticized everything from my cooking to my inability to give her grandchildren. The way Donald had slowly adopted his mother's cruel comments, disguising them as jokes. Yes, I said firmly. Let's do it now, while they have an audience. I nodded to Delilah, who pulled out her phone and started recording. Then I dialed the number Jerome had given me. Send them in, I said. We watched as a formal-looking woman in a suit walked up to my front door, flanked by 2 uniformed officers. Through the large windows, I could see the exact moment Helen opened the door, her smile freezing as she was handed the stack of papers. What's happening? Donald appeared behind his mother, Tiffany clutching his arm. The server's voice carried clearly across the lawn. This is an immediate eviction notice. The property legally belongs to Ariel, as per the prenuptial agreement clause triggered by the vehicular incident of April 15th. You have 1 hour to vacate the premises. Helen's screech could probably be heard 3 blocks away. This is ridiculous. Donald, call your lawyer. But Donald was staring at the additional papers being handed to him, the photos, the bank statements, the timeline of his affair with Tiffany laid out in clinical detail. Tiffany stepped forward, her face pale. What are these payments from Helen? Donald, you told me those were from your business account. More cars were pulling up, but these weren't party guests. These were the moving trucks Jerome had arranged, ready to clear out anything that belonged to Donald or Helen. Should we go closer? Delilah asked, still recording. The country club members are going to love this footage. I watched as Helen's perfectly curated world crumbled around her. Guests were hurriedly leaving, phones already out, no doubt spreading the gossip. Donald was arguing with Tiffany, who was backing away from him, staring at Helen with growing horror. "No," I said, starting the car. "I don't need to watch. I just needed them to feel what I felt, having their world pulled out from under them while everyone watches." As we drove away, my phone buzzed with a text from Jerome. "Mission accomplished. The house will be empty and secured within 2 hours. Ready to move back in?" I smiled, thinking of all the redecorating I was going to do. "Not yet," I replied. "I think there's still more karma to come." The champagne was expensive, the same brand Helen always insisted on serving at her parties. I had it delivered to the house with a note. "Congratulations on your new beginning. Here's to karma." From the safety of my car across the street, I watched the delivery man hand over the bottle just as the eviction servers approached the front door. Perfect timing. "They're all still in there?" Jerome asked through my phone's speaker. "Oh, yes," I replied. "Helen invited half the country club to witness their little celebration. Looks like they'll have quite the audience." The server rang the doorbell. Helen answered, champagne bottle still in hand, her face flushed with the success of her planned takeover. I couldn't hear the exact words, but I saw the moment her expression changed, from confusion to disbelief to rage. "You can't do this!" Helen's voice carried across the manicured lawn. "This is my son's house!" The server remained professionally calm, holding out the thick stack of documents. "Ma'am, these papers clearly state—" "I don't care what they state." Helen tried to slam the door, but one of the officers blocked it with his foot. "Mrs. Thornton," the officer said, "this is a legal eviction notice. You need to comply." Donald appeared behind his mother, Tiffany hovering uncertainly in the background. "What's going on?" The server handed him his own set of papers. "Sir, due to the negligence clause in your prenuptial agreement, triggered by the accident involving your mother, all joint marital assets have been legally transferred to your wife, Ariel." "Ex-wife," Donald corrected automatically, then paled as he actually read the documents. "This can't be right. Mom, call Richard." "Already did," Helen snapped, phone to her ear. "Richard, we need you here immediately. That little gold digger is trying to—" "What do you mean you can't represent us?" I smiled, knowing their lawyer had already received the complete evidence package from Jerome. Inside the house, the party guests were starting to notice something was wrong. I could see them gathering near the windows, phones raised, recording everything. "The moving truck is here," Jerome updated me, "and the locksmith is standing by." Right on cue, a large truck pulled up to the curb. Professional movers began unloading equipment while Helen's carefully selected party guests started streaming out the front door, whispering among themselves. "This is absurd!" Donald was shouting now. "You can't just take my house!" "Your house?" The server raised an eyebrow. "According to these documents, it was purchased with joint marital funds and is now solely Mrs. Ariel's property, along with all other joint assets." Tiffany stepped forward, frowning at the papers in Donald's hands. "What's that about bank transfers?" Before Donald could stop her, she grabbed one of the documents, the one detailing Helen's payments to her secret account. "What is this?" Tiffany's voice rose. "Helen's been paying me? All those business investments were from you?" Helen tried to snatch the paper away. "Don't be dramatic, dear. We were just helping you get established." "Helping me?" Tiffany backed away, her face reddening. "You were paying me to date your son while he was still married?" The remaining party guests were absolutely still now, phones still recording, drinking in every word of this unexpected drama. "Ma'am," the officer addressed Helen again, "you need to begin gathering your personal belongings. The movers will assist you." "I will not be thrown out of my son's house by that baron—" "Mom!" Donald interrupted, finally seeing the phones pointed their way. "Stop talking, now!" But Helen was too far gone, her carefully maintained facade cracking completely. "This is all your fault," she screamed at Donald. "If you had just divorced her quietly like I told you to—" Like you told him to? Tiffany's voice cut through Helen's tirade. How long have you been planning this? The movers were already entering the house, beginning to separate Donald and Helen's belongings from the house fixtures. The locksmith waited patiently by his van. My phone buzzed with a text from Delilah. Country club group chat is blowing up. Helen's getting destroyed. Another buzz, this time from Curtis. You've got a visitor heading your way. Tiffany just left the house. I looked up to see Tiffany walking toward my car, her face set in determination. Behind her, Donald was trying to prevent his mother from throwing my champagne bottle at the movers while party guests hurried to their cars, no doubt racing to spread the gossip. Should I stay on the line? Jerome asked, concern in his voice. No, I said, watching Tiffany approach. I think it's time for a different kind of conversation. I ended the call just as Tiffany reached my window. Her eyes were red, but her voice was steady. We need to talk, she said. I think they've been lying to both of us. The coffee shop was quiet, tucked away from the chaos we'd left behind. Tiffany sat across from me, staring into her untouched latte, her perfectly manicured nails tapping nervously against the ceramic mug. He told me you were cold, she said finally. That you'd changed after the accident, become obsessed with work, refused to try fertility treatments. I pulled out my phone, opening my medical records. Here's what really happened. The crash crushed my pelvis. Helen was texting while driving, ran a red light. The damage was... I swallowed hard. There weren't any treatments to try. Tiffany took the phone, her face paling as she scrolled through the hospital reports. He said it was a minor fender bender, that you were exaggerating for attention. Donald's good at rewriting history, I said, but I'm guessing you're starting to figure that out. She reached into her purse, hands shaking slightly, and pulled out the financial documents from the eviction papers. These payments from Helen, I thought they were business investments. Donald said his family's company was backing my startup. What kind of startup? A wellness brand. Organic supplements, that sort of thing. She laughed bitterly. God, I'm such an idiot. There is no startup, is there? She was just paying me to be with her son? I took a sip of my coffee. How did you meet Donald? At a gym. He said it was coincidence, but... She trailed off, realization dawning. Helen was there first. She struck up a conversation, mentioned her single son who loved fitness. She orchestrated the whole thing, didn't she? Curtis, my investigator, found something interesting, I said, pulling out more papers. Your gym membership was paid for by Helen's personal account, 3 months before you accidentally met Donald. Tiffany's face crumpled. I'm going to be sick. It gets worse, I continued, sliding over another document. These are loan applications in your name. Donald's been using your personal information to secure business loans. What? She grabbed the papers, horror spreading across her face. I never signed these. No, but Helen did. She's gotten quite good at forging signatures over the years. Did the same thing to me early in my marriage. Opened credit cards, took out loans. Donald called it helping with the finances. Tiffany's hands were shaking so badly she nearly knocked over her coffee. There's over $200,000 in loans here, in my name. They're setting you up, I said quietly. Just like they set me up. Helen finds women she can control, Donald charms them, and then they slowly take everything. The only reason they didn't succeed with me was my father's prenup clause. Why are you telling me this? Tiffany looked up, tears in her eyes. Why help me after what I did to you? Because you didn't do anything to me. You're just another victim of their game. I pulled out one final document, a blank legal statement. But you could help me stop them from doing this to anyone else. She stared at the paper for a long moment. What do you need? Your testimony about the payments, the loans, everything. My lawyer thinks we can build a fraud case against both of them. Helen will destroy me, Tiffany whispered. No, I said firmly. She won't, because this time we're going to destroy her first. Just then, both our phones buzzed, notifications from the country club's social media group. Someone had posted a video of the eviction scene, capturing Helen's meltdown in high definition. Tiffany watched the clip, wincing at Helen's screaming admission about orchestrating the divorce. She really did plan it all, didn't she? The accident, the affair, everything. Yes, I said, and now she's going to pay for it. The question is, are you with me? She picked up the blank statement, her jaw set with determination. Where do I sign? I texted Jerome, Tiffany's on board. Get the fraud paperwork ready. His response was immediate. Already done. Helen's been busy today, trying to transfer large sums out of their accounts. Bank flagged it as suspicious activity. I showed Tiffany the message. Looks like they're already starting to panic. Good, she said, her voice hard. They should be scared. She looked up at me, eyes clear for the first time. I'm sorry about everything. I really thought I was the good guy in this story. We're both the good guys now, I replied. And Helen's about to learn what happens when the victims she created decide to fight back. My phone buzzed again. Curtis this time. You need to see this. Helen just tried to access your old business accounts. Got it all on camera. I smiled at Tiffany. Ready to watch karma in action? She straightened her shoulders, a fierce look replacing her earlier uncertainty. Let's take them down. The first text from Helen arrived at midnight. We need to talk. Don't ruin everything for Donald. I showed it to Delilah, who was staying with me at my hotel suite. Here we go, right on schedule. Ignore it, she said, but my phone kept buzzing. Helen. Be reasonable. We can work something out. Helen. Name your price. Helen. You're making a terrible mistake. Then came the voicemail. Ariel, dear, I know we've had our differences, but this vendetta is beneath you. I'm willing to offer you a very generous settlement. Call me back. Generous with whose money? Delilah snorted. The cash she stole from you? My phone lit up with an incoming call. Donald this time. I put it on speaker. Ariel, please, his voice cracked. Mom's having a breakdown. The bank's frozen our accounts. Just tell me what you want. I want the truth, I said coldly. About the accident, about Tiffany, about everything. It wasn't what you think. Really? Because I have security footage of your mother trying to access my business accounts yesterday. Want to explain that? Silence, then. That's not... She was just committing fraud? Again? I pulled up my email, reading from Curtis's latest report. Like she did with those loan applications in Tiffany's name? You talked to Tiffany? Fear crept into his voice. She's sitting right here, I lied, enjoying his sharp intake of breath. She's very interested in how her signature ended up on all those documents. Don't do anything rash. Like running a red light while texting? Like that kind of rash? The line went dead. Seconds later, another text from Helen. 20,000 cash, tonight. Just stop this madness. I forwarded everything to Jerome, who responded immediately. Keep them talking. The more desperate they get, the more mistakes they'll make. As if on cue, my laptop pinged with an alert from my banking app. Someone was attempting to access my business account again. Got you, I whispered, triggering the security protocol Jerome had set up. Within seconds, Curtis sent a screenshot of Helen at an ATM, trying to use a duplicate card she must have made months ago. Delilah peered at the image. Is she crying? Good, I said, remembering how she'd laughed while packing my things. Let her cry. My phone buzzed with a new message, this one from an unknown number. It's Tiffany. Helen just called me, offering money to fix this misunderstanding. She doesn't know I'm working with you. I smiled. Tell her you'll think about it. Let's see what else she offers. The next hour brought a flood of increasingly desperate messages from Helen. I have connections. I can make your life very difficult. Think about Donald's future. That accident wasn't entirely my fault. I know things about your father's business. That last one made me pause. I called Jerome. What could she know about Dad's business? Nothing, he assured me. She's grasping at straws. But this is interesting. I just got a call from her bank. She tried to open a new account using your Social Security number. That's a federal offense. Exactly, and we have it all documented. Jerome's voice held a note of triumph. She's unraveling, Ariel, making rookie mistakes. Another text from Tiffany. Helen just offered me $50K to sign a statement saying you coerced me. I recorded the whole conversation. I forwarded this to Jerome, who replied, Perfect. The fraud case is solid now. Want me to move forward with the charges? Before I could answer, there was a knock at my hotel room door. Delilah checked the peephole and gasped. It's Helen. I walked to the door, heart pounding, but hands steady. Through the peephole, I could see Helen's mascara-streaked face, her usually perfect hair disheveled. Ariel, she called out. I know you're in there. Please, let's be civilized about this. I pressed record on my phone and opened the door. Helen rushed in, clutching her designer handbag like a shield. This has gone far enough. I'm prepared to offer you nothing. I cut her off. You have nothing to offer me. The house is mine, the business is mine, and in about... I checked my watch. 12 hours, the police will have enough evidence to charge you with fraud. She stumbled backward. You wouldn't dare. Watch me. I held up my phone, showing her the ATM footage. By the way, that card you tried to use? Every attempt was logged and reported to the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. Helen's face crumpled. For a moment, I saw past the designer clothes and practiced poise to the desperate woman beneath. You're just like me, she whispered, using people, manipulating situations. No, I said firmly. I'm nothing like you. I'm just better at karma than you expected. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters. Helen's financial crimes had made local headlines, especially after several other victims came forward with similar stories. I stood at the top of the steps with Jerome and Tiffany, watching Helen and Donald arrive for the hearing. Ready? Jerome asked, adjusting his tie. I nodded, gripping my folder of evidence. Inside were years of fraudulent documents, forged signatures, and the final piece, Helen's recorded confession from my hotel room. The courtroom was packed. I recognized faces from the country club, former friends who'd believed Helen's lies about my mental breakdown. They weren't laughing now. All rise, the bailiff called as Judge Martinez entered. Helen's lawyer spoke first, trying to paint a picture of a misunderstood grandmother-to-be who only wanted to protect her son. I watched the judge's expression darken as Helen dabbed at fake tears with a monogrammed handkerchief. Then it was our turn. Your Honor, Jerome began, we have documented evidence of systematic fraud spanning nearly a decade. Mrs. Helen Thornton didn't just cause an accident that severely injured my client. She orchestrated a complex scheme of financial manipulation and identity theft. Tiffany took the stand first. Her voice shook, but grew stronger as she detailed Helen's manipulation. She paid me to date her son, Tiffany testified, then used my personal information to secure fraudulent loans. When I discovered this and confronted her, she offered me money to lie in court. Donald's face went pale. He hadn't known about the loans. Next came the bank records, dozens of unauthorized transactions, forged signatures, fake accounts. With each new piece of evidence, Helen's composed facade cracked further. And now, Jerome said, we have Mrs. Thornton's own words. He played the hotel room recording. Helen's voice filled the courtroom. That accident wasn't entirely my fault. Then, moments later, her attempt to bribe me into silence. Helen's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, I need to confer with my client. Sit down, Helen snapped, standing suddenly. This is ridiculous. Everything I did was for my son. That woman, she pointed at me, was destroying our family's legacy. She couldn't give Donald children, couldn't maintain our social standing. Mrs. Thornton, the judge warned, I suggest you stop talking. But Helen was beyond stopping. She trapped my son with that prenup, used her father's connections to steal our property. The property you lost after causing an accident that left me unable to have children, I interrupted, my voice carrying across the courtroom. The accident you caused while texting about setting Donald up with Tiffany. The gallery erupted in whispers. Helen's lawyer looked like he wanted to disappear. I have a statement to make, Donald said suddenly, standing up. His lawyer grabbed his arm. Don't. No, Donald pulled away. I need to say this. He turned to face me. The accident. Mom told me she had proof you were cheating. Said we needed to follow you that day. But there was no proof, was there? She just needed an excuse to hurt you. Helen's screech echoed off the walls. Donald, shut up! She planned everything, he continued. The accident, Tiffany, the loans. I knew about some of it, but not all. I was a coward. I let her control everything because it was easier than standing up to her. The judge's gavel cracked like thunder. That's enough. Based on the evidence presented and these spontaneous confessions, I'm prepared to rule. What followed was everything Jerome had promised. The fraud charges stuck. Helen's assets were frozen. The civil penalties would bankrupt her. Donald faced lesser charges but still lost his business license. Furthermore, the judge continued, I'm issuing a restraining order preventing both Helen and Donald Thornton from coming within 500 feet of Ariel or her property. I watched Helen crumple in her seat as reality hit her. All her careful plans, her manipulations, her social climbing, destroyed by her own actions. Outside, reporters swarmed the steps. I saw Donald trying to approach, but Delilah blocked his path. Ariel, he called out, I'm sorry for everything. I turned to face him one last time. No, Donald, you're just sorry you got caught. Tiffany touched my arm. The reporters want statements. Ready to tell our side? I looked at the crowd of cameras, then at Helen being led away by her lawyer. Actually, I don't need to say anything. The truth speaks for itself. As we walked down the courthouse steps, my phone buzzed with messages from the country club group, the same one that had once mocked my breakdown. Now they were falling over themselves to apologize. Delete them all, Delilah suggested. I did better than that. I left the group entirely. Some karma doesn't need an audience. The moving truck pulled away from my driveway, leaving me alone in my newly redesigned home. Every trace of Helen's influence was gone. The stuffy antiques, the pretentious artwork, the cold formal spaces she'd insisted upon. In their place, I'd created warmth, comfort, and most importantly, peace. My phone buzzed with a text from Tiffany. Just landed my first legitimate client. The Women's Advocacy Foundation is really taking off. I smiled, remembering how she'd used her settlement money to start helping other women escape financial abuse. She'd found her calling in the ashes of Helen's manipulation. The doorbell rang. It was Delilah, carrying a bottle of wine and a stack of mail. Final notice from the country club, she announced, waving an envelope. They want to reinstate your membership. Apparently, Helen's replacement on the board insisted. I took the envelope and dropped it straight into the shredder. Some bridges are better left burned. Speaking of Helen, Delilah pulled out her phone. Did you see this? It was a local news article. Helen had been spotted working as a sales clerk at a discount department store. The mighty had fallen indeed. And Donald? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Living with his cousin in Ohio. The medical supply company he started with those fraudulent loans? Completely bankrupt. Delilah poured the wine. Jerome says he's working as a gym trainer now. The irony wasn't lost on me. That's how he'd met Tiffany, in a gym, playing his mother's game. Now he was back where he started, but without the family fortune to cushion his fall. A car pulled into my driveway, Jerome, right on time. He carried a thick folder and wore the smile that meant good news. The last of the paperwork, he announced, spreading documents across my kitchen island. Helen's appeal was denied, the fraud charges stick, and she's required to pay restitution to all identified victims. How many came forward in the end? 17, Jerome said grimly. 17 women they'd scammed over the years. You were just the first one to fight back. I signed where he indicated, officially closing this chapter of my life. But something still nagged at me. My father knew, didn't he? That's why he insisted on that clause in the prenup. Jerome's expression softened. Your father was a good judge of character. He saw through Helen's facade at that first dinner. The clause was his way of protecting you, even after he was gone. The doorbell rang again. This time it was Curtis, looking unusually formal in a suit. Just came from the FBI field office, he said, accepting a glass of wine. They're using your case as a template for investigating similar fraud patterns. Helen's little empire wasn't unique, just unusually sloppy near the end. Because she never expected anyone to fight back, Delilah added. No, I said, thinking of all those other women. She never expected us to find each other. My phone lit up with another text from Tiffany. Speaking at the domestic abuse conference next month. Want to join me? Your story needs to be heard. I showed the message to Delilah, who immediately nodded. Do it. Help other women spot the Helens of the world before it's too late. Looking around my peaceful home, I realized something important. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about breaking a cycle, about showing others that fighting back was possible. You know what Helen said to me in that hotel room? I told them. She said I was just like her, using people, manipulating situations. She was wrong, Jerome said firmly. I know, I replied, because everything I did was about exposing the truth, not hiding it, about facing consequences, not avoiding them. Curtis raised his glass. To karma. No, I corrected him, thinking of all the women who'd come forward, of Tiffany finding her purpose, of my father's protective foresight. To justice, the kind you fight for. We clinked glasses as the setting sun painted my living room in warm light. On my wall hung a single photograph, not of my wedding or the life Helen had tried to orchestrate, but of my father and me at my college graduation. He was smiling, proud and protective to the end. I touched the frame gently. You were right, Dad. Sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes you need a good lawyer and an even better prenup. Delilah laughed, linking her arm through mine. And sometimes you need to let karma do its thing. No, I said, smiling at my chosen family gathered in my reclaimed home. Sometimes you need to give karma a little help.